Good evening. Welcome to the Fantasy Wildcard Dynasty Show. I'll be your host this week, Kev. You can follow me on Twitter at Dynasty_GOAT. With me tonight, we've got a legend. It's Matt, who you can follow on Twitter at MattFFDynasty. Good evening, Matt. How are you?
Evening, Kev. Yeah, not doing too bad, thanks. Obviously, we've just got through week 18, so I guess that's it. The end of the regular season. Fantasy football's come to a wrap. I know some teams might have used week 18 to maybe decide that the championship weeks. Obviously, we had that tough week last week with everything that happened with Hamlin and fantasy was implicated with that. So some people might have had something riding on this week, but now we can say that the fantasy season is well and truly over. And I guess in a way I'm kind of happy about it, Kevin. I don't know how you feel, but it is a long 18 weeks when we get towards the back end of things. And I know what you're like, and I'm the same. Just looking forward to the off season, digging into these rookies and everything. But obviously we've got a show on this previous week to talk about first.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think first of all, it was nice to have a little bit of a break and not be doing waivers, doing your lineups. Because it is a grinding season to continue with setting your lineups in so many leagues, your trades, your waivers, the content that you do as well on Twitter. I guess it is a grind, but it's great to be finally over and just focusing on the playoffs. Obviously, the Giants got in, my Eagles got in, and Ali's Bucks also got in. So it's a wild card type of season as such. Your boys were keeping me up pretty late on Sunday when that should have been put to bed. I was worrying that we'd jump from the Eagles went from the first spot to the fifth. So glad that didn't actually happen. It was a lot closer than it should have been with Davis Webb there. But yeah, I touched upon Ali. Unfortunately, he's not with us tonight. Another legend of Fantasy Wildcard Dynasty. I'm guessing he's prepping for the Bucks big game this week, and hopefully we can do a solid for both of us because we're not huge Cowboys fans. So yeah, I'm sure we'll get Ali back very soon, hopefully celebrating a Bucks win on Monday Night Football. Right, so on today's show, we'll be looking back over week 18 of the NFL regular season, highlighting players that stood out to us and discussing a couple of trades to establish their dynasty value. So Matt, we'll kick off with you. Who was the guy that stood out to you most this week?
Yeah, so we're going to kick things off at quarterback, but not just a quarterback, Kev. We're going to talk about the world-renowned chef that is Marco Pierre Scheidt, otherwise known as Russell Wilson. Yeah, we always say let Russ cook, and he's tried cooking this season, Kevin. It's not been great what he's been cooking up. Finishes the quarterback 16, but it's quarterback 21 in fantasy points per game. So a real rough season for Russell Wilson after obviously that big move to the Broncos. But there is a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, I guess. We're just looking back over the last 2 weeks. Finished quarterback 5 in week 17, and then this past week, even though it is week 18, still managed to finish quarterback 2. So obviously still great to look at when you see that on Sleeper or whichever fantasy system you use, just seeing that he had that QB2 finish after what has been a rough season. It's always good to see a strong finish to the season. And is there maybe some connection in this? We've got to talk about the head coach, obviously Nathaniel Hackett. Is it a coincidence, Kev, that as soon as he left, Russell Wilson starts to turn things around? Who knows? I think it's something that we've obviously got to look forward to in the future years, the next couple of years at least, because looking at that contract situation, I think it's safe to say that Russell Wilson's at least going to get a shot for the next year or two. I think the earliest that they can have any kind of hope of getting out of that contract without a massive dead cap hit is 2025. So we're looking at 2 seasons, hopefully, under Russell Wilson. And I'm still holding out hope in Russell Wilson. I think although this season has been an absolute write-off, I do think there might be something in that, like I mentioned with Hackett when he's left, and Russell Wilson just kind of turn it loose a little bit. 3 touchdowns this past week. I mean, when we're talking about a guy that's only had, 16 this entire year, I mean, getting 3 in one game, I think there is still hope for Russell Wilson. I know he's getting up there in age as well, but like I said, I think there's hope. And just looking at Keep Trade Cut as well, currently quarterback 22. So if you are looking to get Russell Wilson, you can get him at a pretty good value right now. And I know when you go on Keep Trade Cut, you can keep those picks values on there as well as quarterbacks, and is one spot above a 24 mid-second. So I mean, if that's the kind of price we're talking about for a quarterback that feels guaranteed to at least be the starter for the next year or two, I mean, I'm more than happy to pay that. I think you likely do have to pay a little bit more than a mid-24 second to get him. But I just think right now he's at a bit of a value, and you're just taking that shot really that he can turn things around. But yeah, overall, rough season for Russell Wilson. But hopefully, them Space Jam Monsters can give him that ability back in next year. He can take stuff around.
Yeah, he's a walking gimmick, isn't he, Russell Wilson? A player's bad when they're more known for the off the field stuff like this than the actual on field play. But we spoke about Wilson, I think 5 weeks ago, and we were all above the market on Wilson. We were all hoping, and we had a feeling that he was going to bounce back at some stage, and a lot of it was down to Hackett. I think sometimes it is tricky when the coach leaves because the players seem to automatically pick it up again. You're thinking, why couldn't they have done that for the previous coach? So I think some of it is down to the players themselves, but also he was a terrible coach, was Hackett. His dad were a terrible OC as well, and he never was head coach, I don't think, but much running the family. Poor to be a Hackett as such, but yeah, I think we've seen throughout his career, Wilson, that he's been a QB, won most of it. He had half a season a season at Seattle where he was outside the QB1. He's had this season, which is obviously not come to fruition, but there's a lot to like about that offense. Players coming back. You've got Dulcich will be back to full health next season. Javonte, Judy's had a bit of a jump, Sutton, etc. So it's just finding the right guy. And if they do get someone like a Sean Payton, that's going to skyrocket everybody's value. So I think it'd be wrong to trade for him on that basis that they get a coach and get a boost. But actually, the value that he's currently got, like you said, QB 22, is well worth going after that pick. I'd be willing to pay anything as high as sort of a mid to late first from this year's class. I just feel like he's got to bounce back for what he's done throughout his career. He's still a solid rusher. He's got that cannon arm still. So, yeah, he's someone that I think was an obvious buy. I still can't believe the market's this low, if I'm honest. But hey-ho, never mind. He's got the security of the contract. So, yeah, make the most of the market. Go after him. But don't go after him too high. We're just going to go through some trades now and see what is too high and what's not too high to be going after Russ. So the first trade is Wilson and the 103. Or that guy, Trevor Lawrence.
Ooh, that guy. Trevor Lawrence obviously had a great year this year. And I think now he's ranked right up there in that second tier, maybe behind Allen and Patrick Mahomes. So, fantastic year for Trevor Lawrence. And I just think with that, you know what you've got with Trevor Lawrence. We've seen it this past year, what he can do, that potential ceiling that he has. And while I've said I think that Russell Wilson can bounce back, there's still risk attached to that. And then obviously taking the rookie pick, well, that's probably going to be one of the two quarterbacks in your Superflex leagues if Bijan goes 101. Again, there's still that risk in the quarterbacks. You're kind of hoping that they can hit. You're hoping they can be a Trevor Lawrence. So I just think I'd rather take the known asset in that thing in Trevor Lawrence. And yeah, I'm siding with T-Law on this one.
Yeah, I think on this one, like obviously I've said it, so it is pretty close in my mind as well. In a vacuum, I do lean Trevor Lawrence ever so slightly, just based on the fact that, yeah, I think he is going to be in that next tier. He's going to be spoken about with guys such as Herbert and Burrow. I know he outperformed Herbert this season, and he's on a trajectory to sort of get to Joe Burrow status. He's done it in a situation that's improving, but maybe not at its peak yet in a first season under Peterson. But there is certain leagues where I would prefer Wilson and a high pick, whether it be QB or whether it be taking the pick and trading down near the time. So next trade we've got is Russell Wilson or a guy that's likely on the move, Derek Carr.
To be honest, I think this is quite easy for me. I'm going to go Russell Wilson while Derek Carr. I think we've spoken about it before, Kev, haven't we? Is that reliable guy, that QB2 that always just seems to be that middling QB2, but he doesn't really have that ceiling. And even this year, getting a guy like Devontae Adams in, and still he can't really hit the heights that we were hoping, barely scraping in as a low-end QB1, high-end QB2. So I just think that upside in Wilson, while I know he's getting up there in age and obviously coming off a tough year, I just think that ceiling's a bit higher. I like the offense in terms of like the guys that you mentioned in Denver. So if they can get a new head coach and things do fall right, I just feel like Wilson's in a good situation, whereas Derek Carr, it's kind of a bit of an unknown at the moment. We don't know where he's going to end up. It looks like he's leaving leaving the Raiders. Where he goes, who knows? He can maybe land in a good spot, but I just don't think we've yet to see. He just doesn't have that ceiling, I don't think, Kev, for me. So, yeah, I'll take Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think with Carr, there's that risk of where he does end up. Yeah. Because the spots that they mention, it could go. I think the Jets is probably one of the ones that gets mentioned the most. Yes, there's Wilson and Elijah Moore and all-star tight end Tyler Gronklin, etc. But yeah, that's a Breece Hall team for me. So yeah, I think at this stage I'd be taking Wilson. If Carr gets good landing spot, I'll probably still take Wilson and get a little bit extra on top as well. Yeah. And then trade free. I think I know where it's going based on you saying safe and reliable, and you know what's what. It's Russell Wilson or Mac Jones and a 202.
Well, I guess on this one at least you put a 202 in there to get me a little bit excited. But again, yeah, with Mac Jones, he just doesn't have that ceiling, does it? We know in terms of rushing, you're not going to get any of it from Mac Jones. So it doesn't really have that ceiling. And while the Patriots, you wouldn't say it's a great offense. We know Belichick likes to run the ball. Ramondre Stevenson taking a big step forward. Yeah, there's just too many concerns with Mac Jones and talking about hitting that ceiling. I mean, as a QB2, as just a guy that you know what you're going to get mid QB2, then that's fine. But I'd rather shoot for that potential upside in Wilson, who we've seen, like you mentioned, Kev, he's put in mid QB1, low end QB1 numbers year after year. It's just been this past season where we're talking about a down year, QB 16. I mean, if that's the floor, then I mean that's basically Mac Jones' ceiling. So I'll take that shot again on Wilson.
Yeah, QB 16. That's a sneaky QB 16 for a guy that's got about 16 touchdowns on the year. It's scary to think what could happen if he gets a better offensive system around him. Yep. So we're now going to move on to the next guy, sticking at QB, and we're making Matt earn his money tonight. We're going to come back to you on this one, Matt. Who's your next guy that you want to discuss from Week 18?
Yeah, I mean, I might as well keep in the flow, Kev. We're talking about quarterbacks, so we might as well stick at quarterback. And we're going to talk a little bit of Aaron Rodgers. I think a guy that a lot of people are talking about this past week with some of the comments that he made. But just looking at the overall season, I think it's fair to say Aaron Rodgers, it's been a real disappointment for him. He finished as the QB 13, which in terms of fantasy, I mean, it's not maybe as terrible as some might make you think, given the struggles that the Packers have had. But it's interesting to see that he had 12 interceptions, which is the most that he's had since 2008. So it has been a real tough year for Aaron Rodgers. And I do have my concerns about the longevity of Rodgers and also this Packers offense. It's not looked great as a whole. Usually you think Aaron Rodgers, no matter who's on the field with him, it's Aaron Rodgers we're talking about here, one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game. So you feel like even with a poor offense around him, he should still be able to produce. But yeah, as I say, this year it's been a real mess. And then, like I said, there's been a lot of talk about Aaron Rodgers this past week with the game that's just gone. I know that when Jameson Williams asked for his jersey, did he give a little, I'm going to hang on to this one to him? It's just typical Aaron Rodgers, isn't it? This is what happens. We get to the off season. Aaron Rodgers, he likes that bit of attention. There's little cryptic clues here and there. So I think all off season now, it's just going to be a lot of talks of, is Rodgers leaving the Packers? Is he maybe leaving the NFL altogether? Is he thinking of hanging it up? We've heard rumours in the last couple of years that maybe he's not all there. Maybe he doesn't want to carry on playing in the NFL. So it's going to be a real rough off season. That, as I say, we're never going to get a true answer from him. We know what Aaron Rodgers does. We've seen it this past off season. So as I say, it's going to be a tough one in terms of fantasy and deciding what you want to do with Rodgers long term. You can maybe take a chance looking at keep trade cut QB 24. Again, a little bit like Russell Wilson. We know that when he plays, when he's on form, this is a guy that's a solid QB1, mid QB1 year after year. So if you do feel like he's going to carry on playing, I mean, you're getting him at a solid value there at QB 24, but there's obviously that risk that you're taking on. Does he retire? Personally, I think he carries on, to be honest. I don't think this is not Aaron Rodgers. It's the same when we talk about Tom Brady. This is not how these top quarterbacks, these elite, these best quarterbacks we've seen in the NFL want to go out. They don't want to go out on a whimper. So I feel like the kind of guy that Aaron Rodgers is, I think he will stay. Is it with the Packers? I think that's the big question. It's kind of looking like towards it won't, to be honest. So yeah, just one of these situations that I guess we're gonna have to keep an eye on during the off season. And yeah, tough one in terms of Dynasty. Where you at, Kev?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I agree with Aaron Rodgers in the sense that I wouldn't be giving my jersey to Jameson Williams, the bum. Why is he asking for Aaron Rodgers as jersey? I had to get that one in while I could. Yeah, I think with Rodgers, I can't see him retiring. You mentioned that the top guys, when they retire, it's usually on the back of winning a ship or ill health, and we've seen in patches that he's still got the amp, he still makes some great throws, but that consistency has gone, and we always seem to suggest that Aaron Rodgers was he could do it with anyone, but he's not wide receiver proof. Devontae Adams has shown that we expected Rodgers to be a QB1, high-end QB1 to a certain extent, but he's not been. And Watson's been great. I think he's been a surprise based on sort of the draft community where people had him, that it was raw prospect, that it'd take time. Romeo Doubs has been a nice surprise as well. So he has had players that perform well. Yeah. If he had Devontae Adams there, would he be a top 6 QB? Probably. But he's not. He sank a lot of my teams because I've got a healthy share of Rodgers, and I was high on him coming into sort of draft season. So I was wrong on Rodgers. He's not wide receiver proof. He's had a bad season. I don't think he'll hang it up. I don't think he'll be Green Bay either. The ideal thing is he goes to the Raiders and matches up with Devontae Adams, but it's going to be so hard to work out and see who's got the compensation, who's got the cap room, who's got that situation that entices him, because I think with his level of talent and caliber, he'll get to pick where he goes, if anywhere. Yeah. So we'll just have to see who comes sniffing. He won't want to go to a team that's in a rebuild. It's got to be a contending team that's going to fire. Will the Packers keep him in the NFC? You'd like to think not, but if he goes to the AFC, that side's absolutely stacked as well. So, yeah, it's a tricky one. Rodgers, I think, is an appealing value at QB 24, but I know last off season I was trading for Tom Brady around this time, and he retired.
But then he came back.
And then he unretired after I'd blown it up, trying to get another QB. So hopefully I'm not in the same situation this time. But we'll see how it goes. We're going to come on to some trades now and establish sort of where we're at on Aaron Rodgers. So first trade, we've got Aaron Rodgers or Geno Smith.
Tough one, obviously. I think if you'd have said this time last year, you'd have been laughing, wouldn't you? I mean, Geno Smith going to the Seahawks, Rodgers being one of the elite quarterbacks, you'd have absolutely laughed at this trade. But here we are, and it's close, to be honest. I think it's really close. Geno Smith, what he's done this year, taking the Seahawks to the playoffs is, he's looked awesome, to be honest. So I just feel it shocks me to say it, but I just feel a little bit more safe taking Geno Smith, So I think I'm going to take Geno, knowing what I've got next year. As I said, he's looked really solid this year. So I think I'm jumping off and taking Geno.
Yeah, I think it's fair, to be honest, because Geno's done an amazing job. I guess after a couple of weeks into the season, maybe it's an easy call to keep Rodgers. But if you're thinking about job security going into next year, Geno's got the job security over Rodgers in my eyes. He's had a cracking season. So, it is Geno for me. And this will be a tough one for me because I've got loads of both of these QBs. But I'll lean Geno on that one with you. Trade 2, we've got Rodgers and the 204 or Kirk Cousins.
Again, it's a tough one, but I feel like I'm wimping out a little bit here, Kev, but again, it just feels like Kirk Cousins that little bit more safe. It's just that unknown, like we've talked about, the fact that you could quite easily just hang him up, or we don't know the landing spot. You got to think, like you said, he's going to go to a contending team, so you feel like he should be surrounded with strong weapons, but it's just that unknown for me. And while the 204 is there, and that's obviously going to be a solid piece in this upcoming class. Again, at quarterback in Superflex leagues, I don't like getting risky at quarterback. I've been bent plenty of times with these risky quarterbacks. So I think I'll just take the guy that feels solid. Is usually a rock solid low end QB1, high end QB2. So I'm going to play safe and go Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, I think that's the right process move, to play safe and take Cousins, who you know is going to be a starter next season. There is a slight chance that Rodgers does retire still, so Well, people probably think it's a majority. I don't, and you don't. So maybe we're the minority that's the majority, really. But I think it's the right move. But if he does stick around, if we get into next season, it's going to look like a bad trade if you're taking Cousins over Rodgers and one of these falling stars in 2023. And then the third trade we've got Aaron Rodgers or Jordan Love.
That's a fun one. It's got to be Aaron Rodgers. I mean, if Rodgers does leave the Packers, it looks like Jordan Love's going to get that shot. But I mean, what we've seen from him so far, it's not been pretty. I think it's funny though that these guys are pretty much neck and neck on keep trade cut in terms of the value. Jordan Love's value is absolutely rocketed these past couple of weeks. So yeah, it's funny that they're so similar. But for me, I'm taking Aaron Rodgers. Even if he retires, I'm not devastated, to be honest, Kev. So I think that says it all.
Yeah, I think I only play in good Dynasty leagues, obviously. You're in quite a few, so that makes sense. But yeah, the fact that I managed to get Jordan Love off waivers in the last week should suggest where the answer to this really is. The fact that yes, he could be the starter, but yeah, give me the dice roll on Rodgers on that one, I think, and we'll have to see if Jordan Love ever becomes a thing or if he ever gets a shot despite being a first round pick. So we're now going to move. Well, I say we're going to move on from QB. We're going to keep it at QB. Actually, we're going to come on to my first guy. We had to talk about him because it might be the only chance we ever get to talk about this guy.
Yeah.
So it's Desmond Ridder of the Falcons. QB 13 on the week. His best week of his short career so far. His first 2 touchdowns in the NFL as well. He's not actually thrown an interception this season yet. So 4 games, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He's solid enough. It's game manager type. It's just exactly what the Falcons want from their QB as such, with the way that Arthur Smith's got that team build. 2-2 as a starter. He's been 2-0 over the last 2 games. So it's fair enough. I would have liked to see him get longer, a little bit like Kenny Pickett as such. Would have made more sense to see him over a full season or most of a season to get a better idea of what you've got in him. But I think situation-wise, there's a lot to like. There's London, there's Pitts, there's opportunity to increase production at running back, at wide receiver as well. So there'd be a lot to like if you did fancy Ridder for long term. But we've got to remember he is a third round pick, day 2 pick. It's taken him most of the season to get past Mariota on the depth chart, which I am a Marcus Mariota fan, but it was excruciating to watch at times from a passing point of view. I think, yeah, he's on a rookie deal. He's got 3 years left on his deal. We're not bothered about sort of where he'll end up. He's secure from that point of view. It's all about, will he have a job next season? Where's the market got him? QB 25. And what sort of comfort do you have that he is the starting QB for the Falcons? I mean, 2-2 as a starter is fine for a rookie. It's a similar pace to Kenny Pickett, who's had sort of a middle of the pack team as such. My big worry for Ridder is there's no draft capital in him, really. They can take a QB. There's lots of QBs in this class that are probably better prospects that are going to get better draft capital. So, yeah, I just think with Ridder, he's took Mariota's job, but there's going to be someone coming from behind on Ridder. It's going to be like doggy style, honestly. His job's not secure. I do like the prospect in terms of if he'd have got higher draft capital, but he didn't. It took him so long to get past Mariota. He's not done great as a passer, game managed type. I would have expected more rushing as well. So yeah, I think for me on Ridder, it's time to get off the boat while I can, hopefully, before it's too late, really.
Yeah, no, it pains me to say it, but I think I agree. It feels like Ridder, it's looking good at the moment, the fact that he's now finally starting games. But like you said, this is a guy that was selected in the 3rd round. I think you kind of undersold a little bit, kept saying that we like Ridder. I think both we're pretty high on Desmond Ridder, weren't we? Obviously, the draft capital wasn't ideal, but I think as a prospect, we both quite liked him. But like you said, the fact, I think that the thing that lured us in was that rushing upside. And like you've said, we've not really seen it from him, but Yeah, you talked about what he's shown as a passer. I mean, we should come to expect it, really. I mean, Arthur Smith as the head coach, you kind of know what you're going to get with him. He's going to be running the ball. That's why Tyler Algiers looked so good this year, and basically whatever running back's been in's looked capable. So I think it says a lot about how this offense is set up. We know that they're going through change at the moment. They've got a couple of young pieces like you talked about on Pitts and London. So there's definitely hope there for a quarterback, whichever quarterback is the starting quarterback for the Falcons. But yeah, like you said, they're in a position, I think they're pick 8 in the NFL draft. So they're right in that range as well, where they can, if they really want to go up and get one of these top 2 quarterbacks in Stroud or Bryce Young, they're in a position where they can do that. So yeah, you can't really go into this offseason with high hopes for Desmond Ridder. And like you mentioned, while he's looked solid, he's not really blown us away. As I think really for us to be confident about him, we want to be talking about fireworks straight away when he's come in and really lighting it up. And sadly, we've not seen that. So yeah, it's hard to have too much hope in him. I mean, if you've got him, you've got to move off him. I think, like you said, there's a little bit of buzz around him, and Creep J Cut, like you talked about, getting up to that QB 25. I mean, we just spoke about a couple of veteran quarterbacks that aren't too much above him in terms of value. So, I mean, if you can swap Ridder and throw a pick in to get somebody like a Russell Wilson, I mean, I'm doing that 10 times out of 10. So, yeah, if you've got him, look to move off him. If you don't have him, I mean, if you can get him for next to nothing, maybe it's worth taking a shot. We know Superflex leagues quarterbacks. I mean, if we do manage to somehow get through this offseason and they haven't brought anyone in, they've obviously got a lot of other needs at the Falcons. So if he does manage to get through a little bit like a Jalen Hurts, somehow manages to I mean, I'm not saying that the upside of a Jalen Hurts, but I just mean getting through the offseason, then the value's going to creep up even more in it. So I guess if you don't have him, you can take a punt if you can get him at value. But yeah, like you said, if you've got him, I think you've got to be looking to move off it at where he's ranked on Keep Trade Cut. But let's see, Kev, where you are in terms of trades and what you'd maybe look to move off or maybe move on to Desmond Ridder for. So we're going to kick things off. Desmond Ridder or the guy that's on fire at the moment, Brock Purdy.
Yeah, future NFC champion Brock Purdy, I think, is what they're calling him. I've got to admit, I do love Brock Purdy. Just someone that was heavily targeted on waivers in my leagues, a little bit like Geno Smith last year. So, yeah, I do love Brock Purdy. I think he's in a great situation. I think there's a pretty strong chance that he starts next season as the starting 49ers QB, which won't sit well with a lot of people, but it's just facts. So, yeah, on that basis, I think easy decision for me, Brock Purdy by a mile.
Wow. Did not think you were going to go that way, Kev. Yeah, I'll say I'm on the other side of the fence, to be honest. I'll go Ridder. I mean, are we going to talk about Mr. Irrelevant knocking out the number 3 pick in the NFL draft a couple of years ago? I mean,
yeah,
who knows?
It's crazy.
He has looked good these last few games, and like I said, he's gotten through to playoffs. I'm even murmurings that if Jimmy's back for the playoffs, that they go back to Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, that would be
wow.
That would be a kick in the teeth if a guy that's done what he's done come in as a rookie, and yeah, that would be a kick in the teeth. But yeah, I'm going to go Ridder, but
not by a mile.
Not by a mile, but on the same time, I wouldn't have picked Brock Purdy. Let's put it that way. But let's move on to the next one. Okay, let's just talk about rookie picks instead, because we're talking about a young quarterback. So Desmond Ridder or the 203?
Yeah, I think 203 for me. It might not be a QB that you hit in there, you'd think, or a very raw prospect as a QB, but I think around that spot, if you are taking QB, it's someone that's going to be late round 1, QB maybe early round 2, be a chance to throw a dart again as such. Just because with Ridder, I expected more rushing, I expected him to get the job early. That's the only reason. I think if he would have been a higher draft pick and we'd seen more of him, I would have been on that side, because like you mentioned, we both did like him initially. It's just that draft capital kind of sealed the deal for me. So 203, chance to reroll.
I'm gonna agree with this time, Kev. Yeah, I'm gonna take the 203. We've spoken about it all year, to be honest. this is going to be a strong rookie class that's coming in, and that 203, it's going to be solid value. And you mentioned about the quarterbacks there. I mean, where we were taking Desmond Ridder last year, probably around the mid-second in your Superflex rookie drafts. This year, that could be a guy like Anthony Richardson, who could maybe go in the first round or early in the second round. I mean, that's a bump up from Desmond Ridder, who obviously went in the third round. And as a prospect, I think he's more exciting. He's got that rushing upside. So, I mean, if you can get somebody like a Richardson at that 203, which I don't think is crazy to say, to be honest. So, I'm like you. I'll take that re-roll and go for the 203, and who knows what you could get with that pick. So, with that one, I'll see if you can pivot up from Desmond Ridder. So it's going to be Desmond Ridder and the 206, or another rookie in Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, this is awful because Kenny Pickett, man, what a horrible prospect! Like, literally, if this was flipped, it'd easily be rid of me. Just the fact that Pickett's got this, the first round draft capital first of all, and then the situation which people might say that there's no Claypool there, but it's still a fantastic situation with Deontay and Pickens and Freiermuth. Najee Harris is solid receiver out of the backfield as well. And the O-line's actually been really strong as a pass blocking O-line. So, yeah, it's killing me to say this. I think Ali was high on Pickett. Me and you were higher on Ridder. And, I'm going to take the Pickett side just on the basis that I know he's going to have a job next season.
Yeah, well, I think you could spin a web, couldn't you, and make out like this 206 could we just spoke about, like an Anthony Richardson. You could maybe get another quarterback here at the 206 and take a chance, but that's just putting everything in place in it perfectly, and everything doesn't fall perfectly. So you might not get the chance of getting a quarterback, and then you're relying on a Desmond Ridder who might not even be the starter for the Falcons. So a bit like yourself, Kev, it pains me to say it, but I think Kenny Pickett, we at least we know what we've got. He's a first round quarterback, like you mentioned. I agree with you, to be honest. I think he's in a good situation with the weapons that he's got over there in Pittsburgh. So yeah, begrudgingly, I'm going to agree with you. I think Kenny Pickett is the pick for me too.
Yeah, we agree on it, which is good to hear. I wonder if we'll agree on this next guy. We've agreed in the past on him, but maybe not now. We'll have to see what your thoughts are on the move from QB to running back. Who have you got, Matt?
Yeah, like you said, we're going to running back, and we're going to the running back that had a really good, strong finish to the end of the season, and that's Nick Chubb. Coming off his best season today overall in terms of fantasy, finished as the running back 6, and put up the most fantasy points that he's had in his career. The highest amount of rushing yards, over 1,500 rushing yards this year, which is a career high. And then he tied his career high in touchdowns as well, with 12 rushing touchdowns. So overall, it's been a real strong year for Nick Chubb. And yet here we are, Kev. I'm still not on board. I remember we had his good friend Liam from 5 Yard Rush on when I think it was the Streamthon when we had him on and we were speaking about
fading, weren't you?
We were nearly getting towards that stage as Liam was just tearing to be honest, because I wasn't high on Nick Chubb, and even after I've mentioned all the accolades that he's put together this year, I'm still not there on him, to be honest, with Nick Chubb. And the big thing is the thing that's always bothered me with Nick Chubb. It's just that receiving work. Just 37 targets this year, 27 receptions. I mean, 18% of those receptions come this past week in week 18 with the 5 receptions that he had. So, I mean, if that's not a red flag, then what is? Because we know that running back in fantasy, you just need those receptions. It's what gives you that elite ceiling. Like I said, I've just spoke about, this is his best year in terms of the rushing and the touchdowns. Yet it still finishes the running back 6. I mean, that says it all. You just got to look at guys like Austin Eckler, who's just tearing it up in terms of the receptions. Even guys like you mentioned, Najee Harris, it's somebody that's just seeing targets. It just gives you that little bit of a flow. And I think that's the big thing for me. Just looking back, he's had 5 weeks where he's finished as a top 7 running back. Great, obviously. But then he's had 5 weeks where he's finished as the RB 25 or lower. So, as I say, it's just, you just don't have that flow. When you don't have those receptions, you don't have that flow. If the game script goes against you, you're struggling if you aren't catching the ball at the running back position. It's interesting looking forward. Obviously, we know now Russell Wilson is going to be the long-term quarterback coming in at the end of this season. I think you could spin this. Deshaun Watson, sorry. Yeah, you could spin this 2 ways. If he's obviously struggled, Deshaun Watson, these games since come back. If we say he does take that step forward next year, which I think both of us think he will take that step forward, and in terms of passing the ball, you could say that's a downside for Nick Chubb, because a quarterback that's competent throwing the ball is going to be throwing the ball a lot. It's obviously a knock against the running game, but then on the flip side of that, if he's on fire and they're getting up early, this Browns defense has looked pretty strong this past year. So if they are getting up early with Watson tearing it up, then Nick Chubb's going to get those opportunities later on in the game to wind down the clock. So there's plus and minuses to Watson being at quarterback, but the big thing for me as well is that rushing ability that Watson's got. We've seen it the last couple of weeks where he's getting out of you guarantee sacks, and he's somehow managed to get out of it and scrambling. And when you've got a quarterback that can do that, can extend plays and scramble, they don't tend to look to that safety valve at running back, and hence you just don't get those receptions at running back. So overall, the lack of receiving work is a big red flag for me with Nick Chubb. Getting up there in age, 27 years old, 2 years left on the contract. This is literally we're basically talking about Derrick Henry, aren't we, Kev? This is basically what we say every year with Derrick Henry, and he somehow manages to prove us wrong, but we are starting to see maybe the downward trajectory of Derrick Henry, and I feel like Nick Chubb, you just never know, deal with a guy like this, that the downturn could be pretty sharp. I think there's going to be people that are going to be excited by Nick Chubb, because we know that Kareem Hunt's going to be a free agent, so we're going to see that opportunity and maybe think that there's potential there. But looking at keep trade cut, running back 13 for me, Kev, that's still a bit too high for me. But I don't know where you're at. Have you changed your mind on Nick Chubb this past year?
No.
Good.
So let's be fair. When he started the season and he had about it seemed like 10 touchdowns in his first 8 games, and I called him my fade. I look like a bit of a tool, but it was an unsustainable touchdown rate. I think he's had maybe 1 or 2 over the second half of the season. Running back 13 at keep trade cut, that's somewhere where I don't really want to go fishing anyway for running backs who want top 10 or in the 20s. And I just feel that for that sort of asset you've got on your teams, it's boom bust. Some weeks it's going to be great, some weeks it's going to be terrible. I just feel your roster's going to be better pivoting to something safer, something like a wide receiver or some sort of package where you're getting an upgrade at a position and taking a downgrade at running back, just based on, like you said, there's this maybe a hope that Kareem Hunt's gone and maybe we'll get more passes, but when Kareem Hunt's not been in the lineups in the past, he's not commanded targets. And Kareem Hunt's been terrible this season as well. He's been atrocious. If you've had him in your expecting to be sort of a flex play in your teams or by what you're feeling, he's done absolutely nothing for you. He's been gross. So if he can't do it when Hunt's been terrible, when Hunt's been injured, he's not going to start doing it now. You're hoping for him to be Derrick Henry, which he was for a little bit this season, but if he had that sort of start to season, finish running back 6, it is a red flag, like you said. So let's see what trades we've got to see if we can give a little bit of glimmer to any poor soul that's still got Nick Chubb on the roster. So Nick Chubb or a 202?
I feel like I'm going to get backlash for this, but I'm going to take the 202 over Nick Chubb, even though he's just finished as the RB6. But I've got concerns, Kevin. I think, like we spoke about, with the strength of this class, I just feel like what you're going to get at that 202, it doesn't feel great when you're just saying numbers 202, but when that's a player, when we've evaluated all these rookies and you're on the clock at the 202, you're going to see these players, and I think your mind's going to change from what it is now. So I'm just going to take a shot, restart, get rid of the age in running back, and take a shot at this 202. Yeah,
I think a lot of this is to do with the time in the off-season and thinking about if you are going after a running back now, first of all, there's free agency to get through, there's a draft to get through, there's training camp, obviously injuries, etc. So going after a running back now, you're taking on a lot of risk, and that's not even considering he's 27, he's had injuries before. So the right move is the 202 in my eyes, and then you don't have to use that pick. You can trade it. You've got an asset that's more flexible than a Nick Chubb, who he's only going to be appealing for 2 or 3 idiots in your league. So trade 2, we've got Nick Chubb and the 210 or Josh Jacobs.
It's tough because I think if we're just talking about the 2, if we were talking about Josh Jacobs being on the Raiders, then I'm feeling confident because he's looked good this past year. In fact, he's looked great this past year, but it's just that bit of uncertainty, not knowing where he's going to land. does make this a little bit tougher for me, to be honest. And are we saying it's Nick Chubb and the 210? Did you say, Kev?
Nick Chubb and the 210 or Josh Jacobs? Yeah.
I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna take the chance, and I'm gonna take Nick Chubb in that 210. I think it is close. It's just that uncertainty with Josh Jacobs, where he's going to land, we don't know. And I just think getting two assets, even though Nick Chubb is probably getting towards the back end of his career, if he can still get through, like you mentioned, get through free agency in the off season, and he is the lead back, at least you feel like he is going to be at worst a solid RB2, and then you're getting an asset on top of that as well. So begrudgingly, I'm going to go for Nick Chubb in the 210.
I'll go Josh Jacobs, I think, just to mix it up. I know you're wearing black tonight, but I'll go for Josh Jacobs just on the basis that we've seen glimmers this season of what he can be. He led the league in rushing. He had a good amount of receptions as well. So do I think Chubb's a better talent as a player? Yes. But I think Jacobs shown that he can catch passes. He can be a great rusher in his own right. And just gamble a little bit, I think, on that one. But obviously, I'd like to have picks rather than going after running backs at this stage. So last trade we've got is Nick Chubb or Zeke and the 206.
These have been horrible, Kev.
I know.
I've struggled with these. And Zeke, I mean, we're talking about a guy he's not, I think when you watch the game, he's not looked great, but then when you look at the fantasy production, he's getting the touchdowns and he's managing to get by each week in terms of fantasy. So it's kind of like a similar situation really between the two, but on its head. So Nick Chubb, obviously the better talent, but just doesn't have that receiving upside, whereas I think Zeke can be used a little bit more in the receiving game. Tony Pollard, if he doesn't stay with the Cowboys, does Zeke take on a larger role? Or it's always tough, in it, like you mentioned, talking about running backs at this stage of the offseason, because so much can change between now and week one. And with that, I'm just going to, again, take the safe route, shy away, and I'm just going to go for that pick and take Zeke, because getting that 206, it's a cop-out. It's the cop-out answer, because you know that pick's going to increase in value. It's the safe thing out of this trade. It's the safest thing that we're talking about here. So yeah, I'm going to take the Zeke and the 206 side, and just hope that Zeke can carry on finding the end zone next year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to agree with you, but I think first of all with this, I think Nick Chubb will outscore Zeke next season, but I think they'll probably have a similar number of running back 1 weeks, just based on the fact that Chubb will be up and down. I think Zeke's probably going to be a little bit more consistent, but have the odd week where he gets a couple of touchdowns in a safer offense. We're hoping that Watson does become the man. We'll see what he's like outside in Cleveland long term. We know that's an interesting climate to navigate. So give me Zeke in the 206, and we'll move off of Nick Chubb. But we are going to keep in the AFC North now and go to my second guy, which is George Pickens. Which, let's be honest, Matt, me and you will love this guy in the off season. We loved him staring at the TV, looking like a man possessed when he got drafted, and all the highlight plays that he has. But yeah, highlight this week: wide receiver 14 on the week, wide receiver 38 on the season, which is a little bit disappointing, but actually wide receiver 51 in fantasy points per game. So actually, when you think about it, it does have these splash plays, it does have these awesome highlight reel grabs, but what is the actual substance behind what we're seeing? We're talking about a guy that's had 2 games as wide receiver 1, but none inside the top 10. A guy that's had 84 targets compared to 147 by Deontay Johnson. So I do think it's quite interesting that he's been crowned the king of Pittsburgh, and he's above Deontay Johnson comfortably at keep trade cut. He's going as wide receiver 20. I don't know where Johnson's going, but it's not anywhere near that. He's an exciting guy. He's an interesting guy, but just the targets there, nearly double. It's too early to call him the main man as such. I think talent-wise, we love what he did at Georgia as a freshman. But again, that wasn't on a massive volume, a massive output. Who does Pickett prefer? Well, it would appear it's Deontay Johnson, so he's got a lot of work to do. There's a lot of talent in the offense, which I mentioned a little bit earlier on. So as high as I was on him personally in the off season, at wide receiver 20 at QJ cut, I think that is a little bit of a false value for what he's done. I think to have him above guys like Treylon Burks is quite interesting. I know you've been scrapping on Twitter, calling out anyone that's got Watson above Treylon Burks, which I think I might actually, but we'll keep it on Pickens and get your thoughts.
Yeah, it's funny you brought that, and it is funny as well that you mentioned that tweet, because I put that out obviously just to highlight Watson and Burks, and then I had loads of people jumping in saying George Pickens is the one that should be mentioned here. Why is he in that group? And yeah, I think, to be honest, they may be right, and I think what you're saying is correct as well, Kev. Bob, we were both super high on George Pickens as a prospect, and when he got selected by the Steelers, there was obviously concerns because it was a crowded wide receiver group, but we know what the Steelers can do when it comes to picking wide receivers. They're pretty damn good at it, to be honest. So I was quite excited, to be honest, when they took him. But like you said, we were both high on him. I've got him in plenty of leagues because I was always grabbing him in the back end of the first. And the trouble is, Kev, while I've got all these shares, I can tell you now, I think I've barely played him this year in any of the leagues that I've got him, because, like you said, it's just one or 2 weeks where he puts up a wide receiver one finish, but then outside of that, it's just gone missing. So it's been impossible to trust, and that is because, like you talked about, the Deontay Johnson, he's the guy that's getting all those targets. He's getting the solid floor in terms of the receptions, whereas Pickens is more that highlight play. I mean, we see him plenty of times on Twitter, the videos that go around of these unbelievable catches that he makes, and while they're great and they look great, at the end of the day, that's just one play in a full game of football, and that doesn't materialize to extra points just because it was a spectacular looking catch. So yeah, while I love the prospect, and while I am still high on George Pickens, I think that value at wide receiver 20, I mean, I caught flack for talking about Watson and Burks, and to be honest, I ain't got him near Burks, and to be honest, I've got him below Watson as well. So I think, yeah, he's a touch too high at wide receiver 20, and I'll personally be maybe looking to take advantage of that, move off Pickens, because wide receiver 20, there's plenty of solid wide receivers. We know they've got longevity when it comes to wide receiver, so you don't really need that sexy young guy that's because he's so young and he's got that potential. You don't really need to be going for those guys. You can take the older guys like a Deontay Johnson that's going way below him in terms of value, and yet still putting up pretty solid fantasy points. But let's see where you're at, Kevin, in terms of the trades that we've got. So we've got Pickin or Deontay. We're not doing Deontay Johnson. We're doing Pickens or DJ Moore.
Yeah, I'll take Paul Pickin. No, I think on this one, we've said it all along with DJ Moore. It's getting a QB. I think he hasn't done enough to warrant the appeal he's got, but I think that he has done more than George Pickens. So yeah, I think I'll lean DJ Moore just on the hope that they do get a QB.
Yeah. I thought it was an interesting one with you, Kev, because I know you're probably the lowest out of us in terms of DJ Moore, and you've made it known that you're not super high on him. So, yeah, I think I agree with you, to be honest. I think while we want him to get that quarterback and maybe see what he can do with a quarterback, he's still putting up solid numbers. He's always around 1,000 receiving yards, and he's actually got a few more touchdowns this year as well, which has been a bonus to see. So, yeah, I agree with you, DJ Moore. The second one, Pickens plus the 110 or Garrett Wilson and the 206.
This is tough because I do like 23 firsts. I think I'm just going to lean Garrett Wilson's side on this one. I think 110 to 06 is like, I've not dug super deep into drafts this off season or draft scouting, etc. But I feel there's a consensus sort of top 8 and 9.
Yeah.
I think after that it's kind of a massive tier. So yeah, if we're doing it on that basis and saying who do you want in a tier, Wilson or Pickens, I'll take Wilson. I think they were very similar prospect grades, but Wilson's done a heck of a lot more than Pickens has this season.
Yeah, and with poor quarterback play and quarterback carousel as well, so maybe if he can get a more stable quarterback, maybe we can see even more from Garrett Wilson. So yeah, I think I agree on that one, Kevin. And the final one is George Pickens or Cortland Sutton, and they're 205.
This is tough because Sutton's not lived up to expectations either. which partly down to offense, but yeah, Jerry Jeudy's absolutely smoked him this year, so it's tricky, but I'll go Pickens.
Yeah, I can go with that. I can go with that. I'm shocked that you went against the picks because you do love them picks, but yeah, I think I'm just about with you on that one as well, to be honest.
Yeah, it was a tough one, but we got there in the end. And speaking of the end, we've come to our final player on today's show, a guy that we had to mention because one, he's got a cracking name, but two, I was actually quite high on this guy in the offseason, so I've got to pour one out for Chiga Okonkwo, the tight end of the Titans. Titans 7 on the week. Digging a little bit deeper, 3 of the last 6 he's been a top 10 tight end. So pretty decent, actually, considering everything we know. He was a day 2 pick last off-season, but not really highly regarded. He's sort of a small tight end. People are saying he'd be like a H-back, sort of a gimmick sort of guy. And we have seen that he has had a few rushes. But he has really picked it up in the second half of the season, which is common for a lot of tight ends. We mentioned Trey McBride last week as someone that's stepped up in the second half. Okonkwo's done something similar. On the year, he's got 32 catches, which is pretty impressive when you're comparing it to more than guys like McBride, than Jelani Woods, Daniel Bellinger as well. Like, granted, he has missed a few games through injury. So Okonkwo for me is he's giving me vibes of a guy that you used to love as a tight end for the Titans, Jonnu Smith. Athletic, beautiful man that can be used in a variety of ways. Lots of hype, but in the end, it turned out to not be the substance. And I would love Okonkwo to be the man, but can he get there? We'll have to see in a little bit, but Keep Trade Cup got him tight in 17. I think it's an area where there's lots of uncertainty. There's lots of guys, like I mentioned there, that could be darts. Other guys in that area, Knox, Komet, etc., that flash a little bit and don't do a lot for the rest of the time. So it is really tricky. Where we'd be on Okonkwo, I think I like the guy. I've got him in a lot of leagues off waivers, but he is someone that I feel, I want to reduce my exposure to the Chig.
Yeah, I'll start by giving you some props, to be honest, Kev, because Chig is a guy that, while I'm doing the evaluations of these prospects in the last off-season, it's obviously a guy that I looked at but didn't really look too much into. And seeing that you had him much higher in your rankings kind of made me have a second look at him, and then kind of saw where you were coming from, to be honest, seeing that what he did in terms of his rushing upside, the athleticism that he's got. It really stood out to me, and in the end, it did make me bump him up a little bit in my rankings. So, got to start by giving you a little shout out there, Kev, for the work that you do during the off season.
If I'm getting a shout out from the tight end king, then wow.
I mean, you won me over by saying it reminds you of a former love of mine in Jonnu Smith, but then it just reminded me that I'm still upset that Jonnu's vanished and never turned into what I hope it would be. But yeah, going back to Chig, he's had a fantastic rookie season. We always talk about rookie tight ends that kind of takes a little bit of time for him to get going. But I mean, given the opportunity, he's kind of stepped forward and he's needed to be honest, in this offense. Traylon Burks coming in as a first round pick, kind of got banged up, didn't he, quite early, got that turf toe, which led to him missing time, and then the concussion as well. Just felt like Burks never really got fully going this year, and with Woods as well, not really picking up the slack that we were kind of hoping that he would do. It's kind of been on Chig to take that step forward and be the weapon in this receiving game. And I have to say he's done that, but that is just my concern. I think the fact that he was basically the only option in terms of receiving, and they kind of had to lean on him a little bit. We always know that this Titans offense is going to run through, no pun intended, but run through Derrick Henry being that running back. They're going to lean on the run game. And with that, it just kind of limits the opportunity that Chig's going to see. And then, as I say, with Traylon Burks coming back, I feel like they're going to bring in some more weapons as well into this offense because they need to. I just have my concerns long term. And while I'd love to say that he's going to be the next breakout tight end, I just can't get behind it. I'm not getting Jonnu Smith again, Kev. I can't go through. I can't go through it again. And I'm going to temper expectations this time. And he's in that range, isn't he? Like you mentioned, Titans 17. There's lots of Titans around that range that have got concerns, but I think you can use those Titans to bump up a tier and get into that tier above. And I think there's more solid tight ends that you can look at around that tight end 10, 11 range that you can feel a little bit more confident in going into the future years. So that's what I'd do. But what would you do, Kev? Let me throw out some trade suggestions to you. So we're going to start with Chig or the guy that you just mentioned, Dawson Knox.
I mean, first of all, I just want to say on a Conquo that I hope he's better than the last tight end we had that surname started OK, Albert O, thinking, although they are similar, both athletic guys. Anyway, we digress. I think Chig or Knox, probably just going to lean Knox on this one on the basis that the Titans have got to be bringing in extra support to that offense, a wide receiver, maybe a QB upgrade in time as well. So I think, I'm not a big fan of Knox, but I think he's got a more stable situation and he's turned it on in the last month or so. So I'll lean that way just on market probably being higher on him than expected.
Yeah, I think we can't get more chalk and cheese guy in terms of offenses. The Titans that are going to run the ball plenty, and then the Bills who are throwing it about all over the place with Allen at quarterback. So I think I'd rather just take that offense and take a chance on that high volume offense and go for Dawson Knox. You're going to have weeks where he's going to let you down. I know he's let you down a few times this year, Kev. You've been quite vocal in the group chat about how when Dawson Knox lets you down. But yeah, I think I'd rather take that known asset and that offense than a Conquo who could be facing a lot more competition this time next year. So I agree with you on that one. And then the next one is a Conquo or the 208.
Yeah, I'd take any second really, because I think if you've picked him up off waivers, you're making a handsome profit on the basis and on the thoughts that he's a guy that the likelihood of him being a top 6 tight end, which is what you want. You want someone that's going to not just be a starting tight end, but actually be better than most of the team's tight ends. It's extremely slim that he ever gets to that point. It's basically given he's never going to be a top 6 tight end. So give me a second. I don't have to use it on a tight end. I can use it on a running back or a falling star.
Yeah, completely agree with you. I'll take the pick here. We know at tight end, there's going to be a tight end, maybe 2 tight ends next year that are just going to appear from nowhere, that are going to put up numbers that Chig can put up this year. So, I'll just take the pick and know that I can probably pick up a similar level of guy potentially off waivers, or at least for a very cheap deal if not. So, I agree with you. I'll take the 208. And the final one is Chig and the 111, or a guy that we both love in Dallas Goedert.
Yeah, I think obviously 111 is going to be a great pick, but Goddard, man, he's getting swept under the carpet because he got injured, because Hawkinson's doing well, because Kittle's doing well. People have bumped him down a tier, which is the wrong thing to do. Dallas Goedert for the win.
Don't have much more to add to that, Kev. Completely agree. Dallas Goedert. He is that guy that's going to be in that. He's going to get up there in terms of tight ends. I think he's going to get right up to being a tight end 4 maybe in Dynasty. Could maybe get a little bit higher, to be honest. We all know this. I'm super on Dallas Goedert, and what he's shown this year has been great. Obviously, the injuries have derailed it a little bit, but yeah, give me Dallas Goedert, baby.
Just saying that it was pacing Hawkinson in fantasy points per game before the injury, so people need to remember that.
That's just a tip that why fantasy points per game is the key, not the overall.
Smart guy, just like the people who listen to the show, Matt. So, that brings us to the end of the show. We've reviewed week 18 of the NFL season. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and subscribe to our YouTube at Fantasy Wildcard. Join us on Tuesdays for the podcast and Wednesdays for the stream. We've got our first guest show coming up in the next week, where we're going to be looking at our Fantasy Awards winners for 2022. So be sure to keep your eyes out for that one. We've got a fantastic guest as well. Not going to spoil the surprise just yet, but she's going to be awesome. So, thank you once again. Have a good one, and we'll see you.